It's Judge's Jules, and it's me, the judge, with Simon. Hello, mate. How are you doing? How was the weekend?
Very good, very good. Column bets keep winning, thank God, keeping us on the road. But 3 in a row, yeah. So all right, it's tough going on Saturday.
It was
tough going yesterday, but I think we've got a few that should profit people.
Yeah, I think the Shergar Cup every year throws up close finishes and rides of, let's say, of questionable nature, doesn't it? Not because they're dodgy in terms of not trying. It's the fact because they're dodgy because they're poor rides.
Yeah, on the subject of rides, it's not an eye catcher, but anyone who hasn't seen it, and yet it's a bit of self-promotion. It was our third column winner in a row, but that's not the main issue. The ride that Holly Doyle gave in the last at Leicester yesterday on a horse called Stiletto's Son, which was our column bet, 100 to 30, is a candidate for Ride of the Year. I urge anyone that's not seen it, and I'm not saying to back the horses, I'm not giving it as a just watch. And anyone who says she's overhyped after watching that, it was a peach of a ride. So take 2 minutes out of your day and go and have a look. Last race, Leicester, Stiletto's Son. A lot of people have missed it. Quiet Sunday, but it is ride of the season material. It's just exceptional.
Brilliant. I've got to say, I thought Saffie Osborne's riding particularly well this season. Now she's coming along on the rails, isn't she? She's certainly giving Holly a good run. It's good to see some girls out there riding really well.
And we gave her a start, didn't we, Judge Chelmsford?
We certainly did.
We're just out of therapy.
That, I think.
Yeah.
Well, my first one, the other two, I'm going to have two from the Shergar Cup meeting about rides, but my first one was at Haydock on Saturday. It's a race that we covered, and it's a horse that you tipped up, a horse called Helm Rock, running the 2:25 at Haydock on Saturday. And we did have a bit of a chat saying we thought it might end up being a low draw bias race. And the winner was drawn 4, second drawn 3, third drawn 5, fourth drawn 6. Now, Helm Rock was drawn actually in the middle. It was drawn 10, but ended up being the widest all the way round. And actually, at the 2 furlong pole, I think he traded quite short. He was certainly less than 2 to 1 as he traded at that point. But that move coming wide all the way and coming to that particular point of the race, I believe was quite a big effort from the horse. He's definitely now down to a mark. He's running there off a mark of 88, but he's been second off 92 this season, and he's down to a mark. He won off 86 last season. I'm guessing he might get dropped a pound or 2 for that run, and I reckon he'd be down on a winning mark. And I can see him popping up in the next couple of starts if we certainly keep an eye on him in the next start or two. This will be a race I think will work out, probably with horses that finish further down the field. Because if you remember the 2 fancied horses, the 2 short ones in the betting were both drawn high that day as well. And I think they both ran promised, even though they were both well beaten. Because next time out there, everyone will be thinking that was quite a poor run. But I think this is a perfect case where sometimes the draw is hard to overcome. So for me, the first one on the list is Helm Rock.
Yeah, it was a very frustrating day. I mean, it had been 16s. I said on Saturday, I thought there was plenty of juice in it at 12 still, and I think it went off like 7s or 8s, didn't it?
It did. Yeah.
You could see very early on, and you called it, that this was a very, very big draw bias race. Sometimes at Haydock they are, sometimes they're not. It's a strange thing. And Kingscote could never get in, could he? I always felt though the horse was going well. Once they took that tight turn, he's run so much further than the winners. You can mark that up. Yeah,
definitely.
I think they'll come back here for something. Definitely, or maybe look at Ascot late season. It's certainly a tough horse at that level. Yeah, I think one of them losses length, but usually frustrating watch if you'd punted it.
Definitely. I mean, it's one of the ones you look. He's come 7th, but that doesn't tell the full tale of the story. It's got a very good record at Sandown as well, from my memory. I can see it running well. It likes a stiff track, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think once he knew it hadn't no chance, I don't think he was very hard on the horse later on.
No, they had every chance, and you can see he gave it an easier run of things inside the final furlong. But like you say, lost his length. So then we're moving on to your first one. I run on coffee. So you're having a coffee this morning.
Yeah. I run on coffee. Yeah, something like that.
I'll have tea while you're going in.
Why not? You run on T. Yeah. We've got all angles covered here.
Absolutely.
I'm starting at Haydock as well. 4:10. It was a really good race. The Dick Hearn. Now, I actually tipped a horse called Breeze in this. I was hugely confident. I had a big bet, and it was one of my platinum bets. Now, that horse just pulled like mad. All chance gone. I know people were, believe me, when these things happen, nobody's more whatevered off than me.
That's right.
I don't know why that happened. The horse hasn't got a history of playing up. I know somebody who was there said she was absolutely fine in the paddock, whether something spooked her before, but you can put a line through that. Breeze is much better than that. But on the flip side, I'll often tell people, oh, you want to bet that next time. We talked about Helm Rock. I've got to be honest, Judge, watching Breeze pull like that, I'm not so sure I'd be rushing to back her again in a hurry. We need evidence that was a one-off before we go in with a serious bet again. So that was very disappointing. However, watching the races back yesterday, I was really taken with the run of the third, Orchid Bloom. She came in here off 85, meaning she had a lot to find with the majority of these. Heredia, proven, experienced horse, won this well, but I mean, you can follow that one yourself. Purple Pay was second. I think that's a good filly. But Orchid Bloom is the most progressive in this. She'd only ever had, this was only a fifth start. She maybe just didn't quite get home at this level. And I wonder if they'll bring her back to 7. Now, she won at Newbury over a mile and won well on really soft. So there is stamina there. But I thought Ocean, you could see the horse just empty late on. She wasn't beaten that far. You can mark this one up. She's still got a lot of improvement to make. She's with the right yard that'll draw that improvement out of her. I think she is a listed filly. But I wonder if they'll go back for something like a real big end of season 7 furlong handicap, something like that. She will go up for this. £2-3. She might go up to 88, 89, something like that. If she could squeeze into a 0-90 on a bit of good to soft, late season, I think Haggis might think he could go back to listed races and group races next year. There might be some big pots to be won with this one. So Orchid Bloom, inexperienced, took a huge leap forward on Saturday and is one to watch. I think there's a big race in this. And I just got a sneaky feeling, Judge, that they might go back handicapping for a while.
It's funny you should say that because this was very much on my radar, this horse. This was actually my first sub, just in case we both agreed on one. If you actually have a look again, the winner, Heredia, was drawn 1, the second was drawn 2, Orchid Blue was drawn 11. It's only one of the early, the first few that finished, if you like, finishing the double figure stall. I like the fact this horse was won on soft ground as well. And I can see this horse winning a decent, like you say, a decent handicap, a good one. Because obviously, because that was a listed race, she's definitely going to go up from her mark of, she's going to be rated quite close to 90 for sure. But Haggis is very good at bringing these horses on to improve as the season goes on, especially fillies. I believe I think he had a filly in the same colours last year. It ended up being a 4-year-old Sweet Believer. She came second or third in the big handicap at York, Ascot at the end of the season on the Champions Day. So I'm not saying necessarily she'd be running it in that, because she's got to be rated in the hundreds probably to get in that. But she could end up being that type of filly that is progressing. Because if you actually have a look, she's improving on the last 2 or 3 runs. And the fact she goes on soft is quite handy come the end of the season, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's plenty of big 7 furlong races, or even a mile.
Absolutely. Well, she's won at a mile, but like I say, a stiff 7 I think would be ideal. Because she did travel very well. She had no trouble laying up whatsoever.
No, exciting filly.
Right. Yeah, very much so. So we're going to go. I was going to say the Breeders' Cup. We're now in the Shergar Cup. There's a couple of interesting rides, and for me, the first horse that's from the Shergar Cup that I want to be talking about is a horse called Struth. And I think something like that was being said when this horse got beat on Saturday. It was given a pretty average ride by Chadwick, Matthew Chadwick. I think he's Hong Kong jockey. I'm not too sure. This is one of these typical Mark Johnston improving 3-year-olds that you think, well, they've got to the ceiling of this, and then they think they had cheap pieces on Saturday, and really this all should have won on Saturday. Unfortunately, it's probably going to go up a couple of pounds, but it was the only horse that made up ground from so far off the pace. It's got beaten ahead. It's gone 10s on him running. You'd have been very frustrated if you backed it. It's a good race for the money. But this horse won at Chester first time out in soft ground, and looked at the horse it's going to win 2 or 3 races at least this season. And funny enough, hasn't won since, but has run well twice now since. Probably go up a couple of pounds, like I say, but I think this horse is still got a little bit more improvement to come, and he can equal more improvement out of these horses, Charlie Johnson, can't it? Obviously he's taken over from his old man, and this is just the type you could see be rating in the hundreds for sure.
Yeah, they're so unpredictable as a yard. It's very difficult to get a handle on them, and I tend to avoid them. But yeah, I mean, well, I don't tend to. I do avoid them, but they. You have to say, I mean, the Racing Post guy, he was more than charitable to Mr. Chadwick when he. I'll just read out what he's put. I think it rather backs you up. Tried in cheek pieces, had to come from much further back than the winner and the third, so in a way did well to get so close. Yes. You read what you want into what he's attempting to say there. He's given it an absolute stinker, hasn't he? He really has. And what I will say is, when we're coming on to mine, but just briefly on Struth, like I say, I won't comment much because it's a yard I avoid full stop. But if this was, as it was introduced on ITV, a showcase of some of the world's best jockeys, looked as though that was whatever, somebody having a laugh by the time it got to 5:30. Because it was wacky races more than a showcase of the best talents. And I just think Ascot caught a lot of them out. And this was a classic example of, he won't know this track. He won't know where to be. I mean, they're supposed to be on Friday walking the track and speaking to the other senior jockeys and getting all their angles and all the strategies put together. Now, I don't know whether that happened or not, but he seemed completely clueless as to where to be, didn't he? And it was too late, so you can mark Struth up. But I will say again, it's not a yard I followed, because next week that could come out and finish last. And then the time after that it'll win. So it's a tough one. But you were unlucky there if you back that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a great believer of backing this yard, perhaps when they're not such a short price, if you know what I'm trying to say. I mean, this might go off 6-4 next time, and I wouldn't want to be with it. I'd rather back it. I'd rather back it up if it's got beat on its time after.
Exactly, that's the way. If you are going to play that yard, I would urge you to play it that way. It's a little bit like John Joe on the jumps, isn't it? You don't want to be on them the time after they've won.
No, that's right.
Obviously, we're not implying anything at all, just the way it goes.
No, that's right.
Exactly. Yeah. So we come to the last, following on a theme here about the Shergar Cup. Now, I gave 2 that were almighty gambles. It was a tough meeting, but if one of them had gone in, we'd have sort of got away with a big profit. Dream Composer in the first went off 4-1. He came up the rail, but that was 25s the night before. So they had a part of a right gamble there with Frankie in the play. But it was the last race which was particularly galling, the 4:30. And I tipped horse number 2, Rustic Gold, for Roger Varian, which I thought was a really progressive sprinter. Now, I love Ed Walker, and so it was particularly annoying. It was a real double kick when Dark Trooper won, that I wasn't sure was going to go on that course. You're on about Safi Osborne. Such a positive ride she's given this. But Rustic Gold back from 25s to 11, Judge. Olivier Pellier. Now, I've been a fan of this guy over the decades, and I mean decades, but I really think it's time he hung up the saddle. He has given this absolutely no chance of winning. And I'm not inferring anything wrong there. He's ridden terribly. I told you the distance race, he packed in halfway around. You watch that back. So whether he's knackered, I mean, he's not getting any younger. He doesn't ride that often. It's my fault in a sense for tipping it, because I should have looked at the riding and should have had the concerns before. But at 25-1, I was prepared to take the chance. Yeah. I think he's a highly progressive sprinter. I mean, you watch this race back. I mean, I have no idea what he's doing early on. and went second inside final furlong, kept on no match for winner. Now, Dark Trooper, the winner, didn't come out like all guns blazing, but she realised there was no pace in the race. 2.5 out, she's just gone hell for leather to get a lead, while he's just lobbing along and looking round on Russet Gold. He's realised she's gone, and it's just too late. It was 3.5 lengths back to a horse called Quinault. Now, Quinault is the handicap machine of the year. So this form is red hot. I suspect Varian will have been annoyed, but what can you do? You get the jockey you get, but he's given that an awful ride, and it's still beating Quinault. So the front two really need to go in your tracker, but I do think Russet Gold will be underestimated. People will not realise how bad a ride that Monsieur Pellier has given this, and I'll be fascinated as to Varian is a master at placing these sprinters. Now, this thing's bombed out at Pontefract, where it was 5th of 6. And I just think it's a funny track. I think it's not gone at all. I was prepared to put a line through that. And luckily, because the time before, it ran at Redcar, only in a Class 4, but it won. And it was such an impressive performance that it went in my notebook. I've followed it at Ponty, put a line through that. It's a quirky track. It didn't go on there at all. Back on a traditional flat track on Saturday, it really, really impressed. Whether they'll come back here, whether they'll look at Newmarket, Newbury, something like that. But Russet Gold has got a serious big sprint in it. And I'm even thinking maybe whether it would get into Air Gold Cups, whatever. But this is going to be a danger wherever this turns up next.
I like to say, I think this is bang solid form because the winner's most progressive. And that one impressively. But the fact, like you just said, Quinault and Washington Heights, and pretty much they've run the form throughout the whole of the season.
Exactly.
Third and fourth in this race really gives a massive sort of like a frank in terms of the formula line. I think this horse that you're talking about could be a very nice handicapper for next season. The sort of horse that could be running in your Stewards Cups, could be running in your Wokinghams. I know it may be a little bit fanciful at the moment, but the fact there's definitely 2 or 3 wins in this horse, the way it's progressing. And it's not had a lot of racing either side, has it?
No.
It's the sort of horse you can see that can be going forwards. But it's definitely a horse that I want to be having on my, sort of horses to follow, certainly for back end of this season and in particular for next season.
Yeah, you probably get David Egan back on it next time. Who knows it? Well, look, whether people think we're being harsh about the visitors' rides, the fact is, let's be generous, is that they don't know these horses. Pellier should know how to ride at Ascot. He's ridden winners there over the year. Whether it's just the mind's still there, but the body's not cashing the checks anymore. And whether he need, Frankie's packing in. They all get to the end, however good they are. So Russet Gold back with a jockey that knows it. Safi Osborne, I suppose her advantage is she will have known that one that she rode, or she will have known of it, being like a Lamborn. She impresses every time you see her. But I do think this is the one to take out of this race. The winner's going to be the winner's going to be well tipped up next time that runs, isn't it? There's not going to be any value in that wherever that goes.
And that's right. If you look at the Quinault form, the actual form of Quinault's last run, there's been 4 or 5 winners come out of that particular race and win since. So I do think this is pretty solid. It's really good form.
Oh, this is rock solid.
And that's saying that then the second there, Russet Gold's pulled well clear of the third and fourth. So like you say, I think that's the horse to take from it, definitely.
Yeah.
Right, we crack on with the last one then. Here we go. And once again, we're talking about rides here. My horses ran in the 3:20, the Shergar Cup Mile. Now this was a funny race, and for a mile race they went no pace, and they literally coasted along, and it was a sprint finish. And how on earth the horse called Foxtail went 101 in running, I shall never know. This horse is, let's say, as known to pack it in any sort of circumstances. He was given a good ride, to be fair, by the overseas jockey, but he went 101 and got chinned by Perotto. And I mean, honestly, it was painful viewing if you were on that one.
He waved his head about like mad, didn't he, later on?
Oh, dear. He kind of he done all perfect and then kind of stopped. And the horse then thought, I've definitely done enough now. It took him an age to get him down to the start. He's certainly a character for his Foxdale. But if you consider they got no pace and he quickened off the front, you did not want to be in the last 2 or 3 places. And they were pulling really hard. And the horse I'm taking from this, in particular for the short term, is Silent Film. But also, I've actually got a horse for you to keep an eye out for York, because I think Escobar's been lined up for the Clip Logistics. And that's currently 50 to 1 if you're at all interested for that. Came second in the race last year. That was held up last. Actually, Sappy Osborne was on that one. But if you watch what happened, the ground that Silent Film made up, pulled hard, turned into the home straight, was last, got hampered as it came for a run wide, switched and ran on into 4th. It's only got beaten 3 lengths, I think, at the line. Quite an unbelievable run. This horse didn't run very well the time before because it got hampered twice in behind Perotto again at Sandown. But its previous run was in the Buckingham Palace when it finished 7th or 8th, only beaten 4 lengths. But I think this horse is dropping that down to a mark it could be very competitive on. This was ex-Charlie Appleby. It's got good Ascot form on the straight track there. There's obviously you've still got 2 or 3 more big races to be run there by the end of the season, and I can see this horse popping up in one of them. And please watch the run back of Silent Film. That's my last one for you, Tracker.
Yeah, Silent Film's not won for a bit, but it's been running in real competitive races, isn't it? He's not really had a soft option. It will, certainly take out of that. I agree with you on Escobar. That was an extremely quiet performance, wasn't it?
Yes.
Really, you do wonder about running a horse to like a Shergar Cup, and then we're not accusing anybody of not trying, obviously. But if other things were in mind, I find it a bit of an odd thing too, because Escobar should have been much more competitive in that, in my view. But we'll never know that. But were it to win at York?
Before we came on, I had a quick look at the at that for the Clipper Logistics, and bearing in mind he's running off a mark lower than he was second off last year. 50 to 1 is a bit of a joke out there, so he's definitely
avail yourself to that.
I've had a little bit of 50s, just in case.
Yeah, so I'm sure Ian Williams will find. I'll probably come back here. Would you think, Ascot?
Yes, if you have a look last year, it came second to Fresh in September in one of them big sort of 7 furlong handicaps on the straight course here. And I think that, bearing in mind we're at this time of the year now, I can see that probably be the race for it. Just trying to think what the name of that race is now. I'm definitely losing the plot. It was a National Racehorse Week. It's a £41,000 handicap on the straight course over 7 furlongs. I'm guessing that'll be the race it should be going for. It's got good. It's run well at Ascot every time it's gone there. So
and a big field Ascot handicap will generally have a lot more pace in it than that race did. So it could, that
comes second off 100 last year. So I mean, it's running off a 98 there. It's probably going to get dropped another £1 or 2 for coming 4th there, I should think. It's in fact, he's got beaten by Fresh by a neck off 100. You must think it could run well again there, couldn't it?
Oh God, yeah. And Williams, he's a brilliant placer of his horse.
Yes,
top draw. Right, that's the Fantastic Five, Judge. Good stuff.
Fantastic Five, brilliant, mate. It's been a good show this week. I hope you have a good week.
Yeah, and you, mate. And I will see you on Friday or Saturday. And only one thing left to say, isn't it, mate?
Be lucky.
Be lucky.